Today I'm going to look at fuel hoses, specifically the engine bay fuel hoses on Professor Tomato. So what do you need to know? Well, petrol is flammable. It goes on fire quite happily, and the fuel hoses contain petrol. So if the petrol is on the inside of the fuel hoses, all is well. If it goes on the outside of the fuel hoses, things can go bad. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, okay. I did actually have a situation with this car where when it was running before, I mean, when it's come in with, among other things, a running issue, which I'm still to find. I might have found it already with some of the other bits I've done. But yeah, I haven't found anything conclusive yet, where it was just cutting out. If you have a fuel problem, you don't tend to just, they tend to just sort of stutter slowly and die on the side of the road. That's actually what it was doing. As I was driving home, I'd had it parked up somewhere for a while, and as I brought it back, I noticed that it was misfiring occasionally, and I'd give it a damn good thrashing, and sometimes it cleared, sometimes it didn't. I was getting worried. I thought I'll put some fuel in it, as well, because it needed some anyway. And the misfire was still intermittently there. And it turned out that it was actually leaking petrol there before the fuel rail, which is, well, that could have got exciting in the same way that it's exciting to shave off for the polar bear. Now, because I'm very organised, I've already removed the various clips and things and spilt out any petrol that I need to spill out. But basically what you need to know is that on most fuel injection systems like this, you have two lines. Not all of them, but most of them, or a lot of them. You have the feed line and a return line. The feed line comes from the fuel pump, although in this car it would have gone through a fuel damper first, but ignore that. It comes from the fuel pump, so it goes tank into the pump. There'll be a filter somewhere. It might be before the pump, it might be after. In this case it's after. And then it goes from there through to here into the fuel rail. The fuel rail has the injectors fitted to it, and they spray atomised fuel into, well, basically into the last bit of the inlet manifold, but just as it goes into the head. That means, of course, that this bit here is pressurised. And you think, well, if it's just whipping through here and coming back out again, it can't be that pressurised. Yes, it can. Because this is a dead end. This is a fuel pressure regulator. And what that does is that basically acts as a stop to build this rail here up to 3 bar of pressure, which is about 45 psi. So that's what that runs at there. That means it needs to stay at that pressure because these injectors need the right amount of pressure to spray properly. If the pressure is too light, it won't mist properly, and therefore it won't burn properly. And if it's too much, it'll spray out, well, if the pressure's too high, it will spray too much fuel, and it'll overfuel, because none of the other stuff here is able to take in any more air to counter it. So what that does is it keeps this regulated at 3 bar. When it goes above 3 bar, if it goes above 3 bar, and when it goes above 3 bar, any excess is allowed to return to the tank. So this is a return line. That means that this one here is pressurised, this is pressurised, this isn't. So what happens when you're ticking over, when the engine is idle, this is sending a lot of it back to the tank, because this will pressurise in no time because you're not using a lot of fuel. So a lot of it goes back to the tank. When you put your foot down, this will be doing less. I don't know exactly how much it will return to the tank. Maybe someone with not a lot to do has measured it. But basically, yeah, the more you're using and squirting into the engine, the less is in the return line. So this one here isn't pressurised. If this leaks, it just drips. And it's still dangerous, but this one, oh my God, I've just seen what someone's done with that octopus. Whoa, that's, look at that. So that means, yeah, this one's not pressurised, that one is. So if this one leaks here, it sprays fuel everywhere. And that's what happened here. I had to cut the end of this off because this hose had perished and leaked everywhere. Now this hose doesn't actually have any nicks or damage in it. You know, it has to be said. And a lot of people would look at that and go, well, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's like 30 odd years old. If there's nothing wrong with it now, fine. But after a year's worth of driving with heat and everything like that from the engine bay, will that look as good? Don't know. It might do, it might not. Why risk it? Petrol is expensive. Oh, and it can kill you. So this one here is the return line. That's an 8mm bore. And this one here is the feed line. And I say 10mm. I don't know if it's 10 or 9.5, but regardless, that's what it is. They have this sheath here, which is just to stop it rubbing on the top of that. So that is OEM, so we shall retain that. Oh, but basically I need to remove these two hoses here. They've probably got a date stamp on them somewhere. It might not be written in English, it could be, well, don't say French, it might be written in code, like date codes, but yeah. So that line there passes through a clip, and this one here is actually pinned in properly. It's got the nice original clips there, that's good to see. So I'll undo these clips here, and then we lift the car up, go down underneath, remove the clips on the metal pipes that these are connected to, because these don't run all the way to the tank. There are metal pipes under the car. So we'll remove these from those, and then I'll talk to you about how the hell I'm going to do this. Because that's a right angle, isn't it? Near enough. And that's why we're changing it. Look at that. Someone would have looked, you can see right through to the braid. That's good, isn't it? Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Sure there isn't. That's why you have to look at them. You know, I wouldn't have inspected these and kept them. I was going to change them anyway. So, right, I need to get some tools and then remove that and that from that, and then pull these back out under the car. So the hoses that are up in the engine bay pass down the back of the bulkhead, and because the steering rack is removed, there is space, although there's not a huge amount of light. I'm going to see if I can move that there. Oh, that pipe I've bought is, that exhaust pipe I've made has bits of stainless in it, so that's helpful. Got nowhere to put my light. Right. Yeah, that's the pressure pipe there. So this is the hose that comes from the tank here. And that is the one that is running at higher pressure. Wow, it's a bit bright, isn't it? There we go, try that. And then this is the return, which is behind there. And these Jubilee clips do not look OEM to me, so I have a horrible feeling someone has been in here before. Now, when I looked at here, I only looked very briefly at the pipes. These are the rigid pipes that run to the tank, and underneath all the grime and everything, you think, well, that's horrible looking. Yes, it is, but that's good, because grime hides or prevents moisture from getting in, which prevents rust. So they're actually quite healthy there. Oh, no, they're not. No. Because you go further back, when someone stopped coating them, and you're going to have to go upside down for this. Oh, look at that. And then you think, oh, that's bad. And then you go, oh, look in there. Brilliant. And what's even better is that they're so rusty under there that this is part of the Jubilee clip, or petrol pipe clip. It fell off when I put my hand up the side of the tank. So they all need doing. The hoses on top of the tank need doing. The pipes need doing. And the hoses going to the fuel pump, I'm guessing, are no better really. They're all up there. You can see. I mean, I can take the exhaust back out to give myself some room. Oh, joy of joys. The tomato just keeps on giving, doesn't it? Ugh. There we go. Well, that was that. Well, I think some of it went in the can. More surprises from the tomato. But fuel hoses are not something you want to cut corners on. And just go in. You got... But yeah, like you go to some garages and they'll be like, oh, they look alright to me. It's like, yeah, right. Why take the risk? Have you seen cars going up in flames on the internet? It's harrowing. Unless it's an SUV, then it's enjoyable. Oh, these are disgusting. What a day to run out of gloves. Actually, a load of LHM got spilt down there last night because the tractor was parked here. So, look, grease. Someone has painted them with grease. They've painted over the rust. Ah, scumbags. Some time has passed, as it tends to do. I've spoken to Mr. M about the issues I've uncovered. I'm a little bit wary of mission creep again. And he is basically just saying, if it needs doing, do it. Well, I mean, yeah, it does need doing, but it's just the cost could start snowballing. But he's right. You know, you don't prat around with fuel hose. What we have done, well, I say we, it's me. So these are the hoses that were removed from the engine bay. So we've got this one here, which was the original supply, which is 10mm, and it's kind of soft in places. I was interested to see how this is. What happens, like I say, I've got a fuel hose video coming out, but what happens when fuel hoses start to perish, especially with more modern fuels? I find, and there's no scientific evidence behind this, but it just seems to be what I can what I observe, is that the hose goes soft. So if it goes soft and then you take it out and then it dries and it goes hard, it suggests to me that the rubbers have kind of absorbed some of the fuel and some of the oils, if you like, or elastomers, I think they call them, have been dried out basically. And this is in places quite soft, not horrendous. I mean, there is dodgy fuel hose. You can get a lot of the stuff labelled R9 is dodgy, and you squeeze that and it's really soft. This isn't. This is, I mean, for the age, this is amazing. But yeah, we can replace this. That we have better fuel now. Better fuel? We don't have better fuel. We have better fuel hoses. And then this one as well. This is the return, and that's the bit that went onto the top of the pressure regulator. And as you can see, it's well and truly balked. So that's down to the cords in there. I mean, you wouldn't have seen it because it's bent this way. But again, that suggests it's dried out. It's not that bad. Probably would have got a few years out of this without having an issue, other than perhaps that bit. But it's out. The bigger thing was actually the metal hoses and all the stuff that goes over the top of the tank to the fuel pump. That's all got to come out. The tank's going to have to be dropped. All the pipe work going to the pump. And it actually, I did notice on this car when I was jacking it up, and I put the axle stands underneath it, I thought, there's no fuel hose going down the side of the tank. And of course, my own car and a lot of the 16 valves that I work on have been bodged. My own 16 valve has the hoses running down the side of the tank because the ones over the top of the tank have needed changing. So someone's just gone down the side of the tank with cable ties, and they're right up against the jacking point. That's the one. So that's not good. So this car is going to be done properly, and whatever I do with this, I'll have to do to mine. But so the main feed hose I've made. When I say made, I took the old piece, cut a new piece the same length. That's it. That's all there is to that. But the return hose is not quite straightforward. Not quite so straightforward, I should say. Because this is the return hose, and it's a formed hose, which means when this goes on here like that, there's a 90-degree kink here, and it runs off back down around the back of the engine. If I get my new piece of hose and try and do the same thing, which is a marine hose, this one, what happens? Oh, it's kinked. In fact, if I try to do it anyway without kinking it, I'm pretty much having to go... What kind of radius can I get out of this? That's kinking. About there. Which is big enough to pretty much fit my hand under. That won't do. I have seen cars like this. Meg was like this. I've seen people do that, but no. No, not having that. So what do you do? Well, what I do is bend a piece of pipe. So this piece of pipe will go there. In fact, I may even shorten it further still, but basically that keeps a radius there. I've still got a few modifications to do to this, but it's nearly there. And you think to yourself, okay, what? So you're going to have a bit of hose connect to this, and then you're going to have another piece of hose down here. That'll look rubbish. No. I insert this in the pipe. It's a bit of a squeeze, I admit, but yeah, with a bit of grease and a bit of persuasion, you can push a piece of conifer pipe there up inside this, and it will form it. In fact, it might even go in dry. No innuendos. Oh yeah, okay. It's starting to. So what that will do is that will go in, and that will make this hose that shape. So it will look much better. It won't stress the hose out because it'll be pulling on it evenly. And it gives it a barrier. It gives it a kind of a reinforcement on a vulnerable part, because I can't make a formed right angle pipe like Citroen can, because they've got millions of pounds worth of technology, even in the 80s. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to tweak this to get it to fit perfectly, and then fit it inside the hose, and then that will go there. And then all I've got to do is run it back down through all the various sheaths, and that's that bit done. There we go. One formed fuel hose. And then all I simply do is put the clip on. There we go. It will actually sit like that. There we go. And then there'll be a clip that sits around here. I'm not going to put it all together yet because I've got to feed it through the... well, I could put it there, I suppose. Yeah. So that will go in there like that. It's not OEM, but it's a lot closer than it would have been. Well, I don't like the white writing being shown, so I'll have to secure it. I might, if I'm being really pedantic about it, I might put heat shrink over it, because that will give it a smoother finish. They don't normally have this braided finish on the OEM hoses, but we'll see. Just going for a little bit of extra protection, a couple of pieces of heat shrink. I may well put the original sheath back over the top for looks, but this is going to give it more protection running around the corner here and down the back of the bulkhead. I was thinking about putting a smaller piece along the top of this hose and making it look smooth, but I decided against it. It's better to be able to see the hose so you can monitor it. There we go. Right, well, that's all back in. I've got there's some heat shrink under here, as I say, so that is nice and protected now. And then there's another piece here which will run, that'll be the bit that rubs against the bulkhead, basically. It's just to give it a bit of extra protection, you know. I don't think you can have too much really on fuel hose. But I haven't fitted all that because this that I noticed earlier, this bit of octopus which has been pulled round at a horrible angle, this is the return for the brake dozer valve, and it has been routed all up there, which is not supposed to. It's supposed to go down there to the dozer valve. Someone is doing me a concern. Someone's fitted this kind of recently and it is a bit wet. I hope it isn't leaking. I hope this hose isn't split, but that is not looking clever. So I'm going to be removing that from the brake dozer valve, but I can't do it yet because I haven't got time, because it goes right underneath. It's a pig to get to. Someone has caused me more stress. Yes, again. So I probably won't film that bit. I'll hook that off of there somehow because the access is poor, and then pull this out of here and run it down where it's meant to go. And then I'll put the fuel hoses back in, because at the moment I've got a little bit more room down there without the fuel hose in the way. But that's those bits done anyway. It's just the rest of it now, isn't it? Right, I'm going home.